and I'm a member here at the Denver Press Club. But before we begin, I do want to wish you all a happy Juneteenth. Thank you for taking time out of today's celebration to be here with us. And I'd like to welcome you all to the Denver Press Club. For those of you that this is your first time, we are the oldest continuously operated press club in the United States.
Wow.
Founded in 1867, this historic space has served as a forum for journalists, writers, thinkers, and storytellers to gather, debate, and engage with our First Amendment freedoms. Tonight, we welcome you to join this process. But before we begin, we have a few housekeeping items to address. First, at the Press Club, we welcome civil discussion that promotes conversation. We ask that you approach tonight's discussion with curiosity and listening. We ask that you help us maintain an environment of respect and dignity for candidates and guests alike, and know that anyone who disrupts the event or refuses Press Club staff instructions may be removed from the premises. Second, water is available at each bar in the back here and downstairs. Restrooms can be found on the basement level, and our bartenders are here to answer any questions you may have about the event or the club itself. Third, if you enjoyed tonight's programming, we encourage you to consider becoming a member of the Press Club. As a member, you will enjoy free and discounted events, a discount at the bar, which is my personal favorite reason for joining, and you will support the club's scholarship program that funds the next generation of journalists in Colorado. Now, with that out of the way, I'd like to welcome Joe Bovin, our board member here at the Denver Press Club.
So before we begin, the club would like to take a moment to acknowledge the passing of one of our greatest members, a massive presence in our Hall of Fame, in Colorado journalism, and all of our hearts, Lynn Bartles. We want to extend our warmest thoughts to her family. I also want to introduce our moderators from Colorado politics tonight, Ernest, Luning, and Marianne, Goodland. Before we begin, we'd like to invite Marianne, Dean of the Capitol Press Corps, to say a few words about her.
There we go. No, it's good. It's good. Hi there. As Joe said, I'm Marianne Goodland. I'm past president of the Press Club and Dean of the State Capitol Press Corps. And I also do want to mention that Colorado Politics is sponsoring this forum tonight. So just as you know. I knew Lynn for 25 years when she started covering the state capitol around 2000 or so. I considered her a colleague, a competitor, much of a competitor, and also a friend. And when she first came to the Capitol, I only been a reporter for about 2 years, and I was still very green and very new. And I learned so much from her when she started covering the Capitol. I consider some of the success I've had as a reporter thanks to the things I learned from Lynn. And she is dearly loved and dearly missed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'd like to welcome the candidates and the Democratic candidates in the 1st Congressional District, Representative Dianna DeGette, CU Regent Wanda James, and Melat Kiros. At the beginning, we'll use your titles. Throughout the debate, we're going to use your names, if that's okay. Each of you will have 1 minute to introduce yourself, and then we're going to be followed by 1 minute to answer a bunch of questions we've got about the job and about the political climate here. And we're going to have a short lightning round with brief answers during the middle, and then you'll each have closing statements. All right? We'd like to begin and go left to right, and then we'll start with the next candidate in each successive answer. So, Dianna,
Thank
you've
you.
got 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thanks to the Press Club for hosting us. My friend, there's really only one fundamental question about this election. Who is going to be the best choice to stand up to Donald Trump and the real threat he poses to our democracy? The answer is clear. I fought Donald Trump as an impeachment manager in his first term. I fought against his illegal war in Iran. I fought to abolish ICE. I fought to give everybody in this country the same abortion coverage we have here in Colorado. I've fought for single-payer health care. Now is not the time to gamble and send somebody with no experience to Washington. We need a strong, bold, hardened leader who will hold Trump accountable, and when we win the majority in November, we'll have real power to move the U.S. to a more just and affordable America. As you will hear tonight, that leader is me. I'm asking for your support tonight, in the primary on June 30th, and onward to a Democratic victory in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Wanda.
Thank you, Press Club, for doing this. It's always an honor to be here. I want to start off by saying something uncomfortable but important. Today is Juneteenth. This is a day when the Black community gathers to honor freedom, survival, history, and the unfinished fight for this country. Yet this forum was scheduled today because the Congresswoman insisted that this was the only day that she had available. So as a Black woman in this race, I had to change my plans. I had to step away from the community and to adjust our Juneteenth commitments to accommodate this schedule because I wanted to be here with you. This is the kind of tone deafness that tells people whose traditions are treated as optional. This is one of the reasons why I am running for office. I have served this country in uniform. I have served the students at the University of Colorado. I have built businesses, created jobs, and I have fought for the communities that are too often left out. I have broken down doors where women and people of color were not welcome and fought to keep those doors wide open. I am the leadership that we need to be able to take to Washington because this matters.
Thank you. Melat.
Hi everyone, my name is Melat Kiros. I am running for Congress here in Colorado's 1st District. I immigrated to Denver in '98 when I was 11 months old. I'm a recovering lawyer. I don't practice anymore. I'm a PhD student in public affairs. As of a couple of months ago, I was a barista at Whittier Cafe in the historic neighborhood of Five Points, to which I just want to also say happy Juneteenth to everyone here. I do wish I was with our community celebrating, but I'm really, really excited to make my case because the thing is, fighting Trump is just one piece of the problem. Trump is not the cause, he's a symptom of a system that is broken and has been broken for a really long time because our party has failed to understand the role that they need to take in getting money out of our politics. That's why I'm the only candidate in this race refusing corporate PAC money and calling for publicly financed elections. Because we can call for Medicare for all or housing first, universal child care until we're all blue in the face. But unless we're honest about what it takes to get there, we won't be able to do it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Wanda, we'll start this question with you, and again, you'll each have 1 minute to answer. Denver voters have elected Democrats to the seat for decades and are expected to hang on to it after this year's election. Why are you the right Democrat to represent Denver in Congress for the next 2 years?
Because I'm the only Democrat that is set up here, like I said, that I have served this country in uniform. I'm the first Black woman commissioned through the Naval ROTC unit at the University of Colorado Boulder. I'm the only Democrat that's sitting up here that has actually started businesses, built business, and created hundreds of jobs here in Denver. My husband and I have owned over 6 restaurants, and we are the first African Americans legally licensed in America to own a dispensary. The dispensary isn't what's important, it's the fact that we fought the government to end the war on drugs, end mass incarceration, and ensure that communities of color did not continue with the onslaught of being used as slave labor. This is an important seat. We can't just talk about what we're going to do. We can't just come up with grand ideas. I have worked in Washington. I have worked across this country. I have worked internationally to create policy and to create laws. This is something that I am more than prepared to do. And the idea that somebody is going into Washington not knowing what they're doing is just false. So once again, when I think about who is sitting on this seat as a Democrat, there is no group of people that I have not worked with, that I have not been effective with.
Okay, thank you. Well, why are you the right Democrat to represent Denver in Congress for the next 2 years?
Colorado's 1st District is one of the most progressive districts in the country. It's one of the youngest districts in the country. This is a district that voted by ballot for universal pre-K, for term limits, for publicly financed elections on the city and local level. There's only one campaign in this race that has every single one of those issues on our platform. That's our campaign, because we actually reflect the values of the voters in this district. I'm a 29-year-old renter in Denver. As of a month ago, I was a tipped minimum wage worker as well. I know how hard it is to get by in the 5th least affordable city in the country. And again, we know what we need to do to fix these things. We know we need Medicare for all. We know we need housing first. We know we need universal child care. But until we have Democrats that aren't taking money from the same corporations and billionaires that don't want those things to pass, we will never see those policies come to fruition. So we have to call a spade, and we have to call out the Democrats who are in bed with these same special interests and are not going to do anything to actually advance the things that the voters in this district voted for here on the city level and want to see on the federal level too.
All right, thank you. Dianna, why are you the right Democrat to represent Denver for the next 2 years?
We need somebody who is a strong leader for Denver and who not only can fight against the Trump administration, but also will pass real legislation to help us. When we win the majority in November, I will be the senior Democrat on the Health Subcommittee. I will have a gavel. I will be the chair, and I will pass Medicare for all. I will reinstate Medicaid benefits to our Coloradoans. I will continue to fight against Donald Trump and his administration from day one. And I will fight to bring resources to Denver for housing, just like I did $60 million over the last 5 years for housing and wraparound services like healthcare. I have the power and the ability to do that. I'm also the chair of the Reproductive Freedom Caucus in Washington. I will pass a bill in the first week to restore abortion rights to every American. It's all well and good to say people want to do things, but a new member of Congress would not even be on the committee that will pass Medicare for all, much less be the chair of that committee.
Thank you. Thanks. For our next question, we'll start with Melat. Members of Congress wear many hats: lawmaker, advocate, constituent representative, and overseer of the executive branch. Which of these responsibilities do you believe is most important today, and why?
I believe it's legislating. The reality is Democrats have the worst approval rating we've had in decades because we failed to actually do anything for working people. The last time the Democratic Party actually delivered for working Americans was with Obamacare. And Obamacare was a monumental achievement, delivered health care to millions of Americans who didn't have it before. But it was also a Band-Aid that this Congress is still fighting for subsidies to make affordable for working Americans, when in the wealthiest, most powerful country on earth, we should have Medicare for all. And I'm grateful for the Congresswoman for being a co-sponsor of it. But just like the policy director of the National Nurses United identified herself, we cannot trust members of Congress who are also taking money from Big Pharma or Big Health Insurance to actually forcefully fight for things like Medicare for all. The reality is money in politics is what's preventing real change from happening. And so in order for the Democratic Party to actually fulfill its progressive agenda, we need to have members that are unbought and unafraid to stand up to the billionaires and corporations.
Okay, thank you. Dianna, which of those responsibilities do you believe is most important today, and why?
Could you repeat the responsibilities?
You can add your own if you don't think we covered them all. But lawmaker, advocate, constituent representative, and executive branch oversight.
All of the above. And here's why. When the residents of Denver elect their representative, they want somebody who can help them get the constituent services they need, who can help them get their passport. And we have stellar constituent services. Also, people in Denver want somebody who's going to bring resources back to Denver. I talked about the $60 million I got just in the last 5 years for priorities like addressing homelessness. Thirdly, though, we have to have oversight over the Trump administration. When I have the gavel to the committee, I'm going to be hauling RFK Jr. in because I will have subpoena authority, and I'm going to put him there to tell us why he is making our kids sick with his vaccine policy. And finally, passing legislation. I've passed groundbreaking legislation, the 21st Century Cures Act, that will bring cures to millions of Americans with cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and more, and expedite the process.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Wanda, which responsibility is most important? And I can read them back if you want.
No, I got it, because they're all important. As a former military officer, I'm trained to do more than one thing at one time. So look, here's what's important. Judicial is going to be important because what we have seen right now is we have ICE in our streets. We have a president that is starting wars all over the world. We're watching what's happening in Iran. We watch what happened in Venezuela. On top of that, advocating is also one of the most important things that we can do is advocate for American citizens. We've got to make sure that we are building the coalitions to be able to pass Medicare for all, to be able to get affordability to a place that makes sense. But that can't happen if we are waging war. And we have to understand what that war machine looks like, how that works, and what it means when we send 3 battle groups into the Indian Ocean. Those battle groups have now been the reason why your gas prices are high, why your food costs are out of control, and why we have a president that just gave ultimate power to Iran without understanding what it is that he has done. So when I think about being in Congress, it's important to me to be able to do all of those things for you, which is part of what I have been trained to by the best trainers in the United States.
This question is going to be for Dianna. Denver residents are struggling with the cost of housing, groceries, healthcare, childcare, and transportation. What do you believe Congress can realistically do to improve affordability? And where do you think federal policymakers overpromise solutions?
Well, the first thing we can do is we can reverse the tax cuts that Donald Trump and the Republicans in Congress gave under H.R. 1, I call it the big bad bill, which gives huge tax breaks to corporate sponsors and also wealthy people. The second thing we can do, we can have a comprehensive housing policy. As a member of the Progressive Caucus, I'm working on a bill that will have a variety of things, including support for first-time homeowners, and it will also have loan forgiveness and help loan payments, and also help development of affordable housing. Also, of course, when we have Medicare for all, then that will help us reduce the cost of healthcare. Finally, we need to have the federal government negotiate prescription drug prices. I have favored that, I fought for that, and I helped pass it in the Inflation Reduction Act, but we need to do more. If people say it hasn't happened, it's surely not going to happen unless the person holding the gavel has the power, and that will be me.
Wanda, to you, what do you believe Congress can realistically do to improve affordability? Where do you think federal policymakers have overpromised?
So one of the things that we need to look at is ensuring that the child tax credits are given to families. We need to put more money back into the pockets of people to be able to stimulate the economy. When we talk about ending the tax loops and the subsidies given to major corporations so that they are paying their fair share, so that we can have Medicare for all, so that we can fund the National Trust Tax Fund, which then allows us to build true affordable housing, especially here in Denver. Since I've been back in Denver, I have seen home costs go up by almost 400%, which is just absolutely crazy when you think about the average person and how they're expected to live. So those are just some of the things that we can do. And then once again, I agree with the Congresswoman. We do need to make sure that we are adjusting the cost of prescription drugs. It is crazy to me that we can get cheaper drugs in Canada and Mexico for the exact same drugs from the exact same companies, and we can't do it here in America. That is a failure on the part of Congress right now, on our Congress. So folks who are in Congress right now, it sits at their feet.
Melat, to you, what do you believe Congress can realistically do to improve affordability? And where do you think federal policymakers have overpromised?
In the aftermath of the Great Depression, when we saw just devastating economic consequences, when we saw concentration in the banks and the rail industry, the government stepped up and actually delivered the kind of policies that came about in the New Deal and literally created the middle class as we used to know it, because we know that the middle class is struggling again today. The overpromise that happens from the Democratic Party is saying that they're going to get something done without identifying the reason why they never got it done in the first place, which is, again, money and politics. So on July 1st, the very first thing I'm doing is I'm calling up all the other candidates that are running across the country that are also committed to this value. Representative Donovan McKinney from Michigan, that's running in the 13th district, Representative Justin Pearson, running in Tennessee's 9th district, were just with us the last weekend, because we're also committed to this value, because we're doing the work of building the coalition before we even get to Congress. And I'm going to make sure to go to their districts to support them in their runs, so that when we get to Congress in January, we have a whole class of members, including all other Justice Democrats, that are ready to get money out of politics and actually deliver for working families.
Okay, thank you. Wanda, next question's for you. Members of Congress are one voice among 435. What do you believe is the most effective way for a member of the House to advance priorities? We have some suggestions here. Building relationships, persuading colleagues, organizing the public, leveraging media attention, or something else? How do you advance your priorities?
So once again, D, all the above, because that's the job of Congress. So I do want to bring out one of my good friends I've known forever is Congressman Joe Neguse. You can't turn on your TV or open up your screen on your computer without seeing Joe advocating for people, bringing the president's cabinet and taking them to task, building coalitions with people from across the United States and other Congress people that are there. So when I look at somebody like Joe Neguse and the job that he is doing, the job that Jason Crow is doing, I have to ask myself, why don't we have that same kind of energy happening here in CD1? And that's exactly what I'll be bringing. I am already connected with the Black Congressional Caucus. James Clyburn is already somebody who supports my campaign and supports me. And these things have been important as we move forward. And these types of connections are very important to be able to make things happen and to make things change as we move forward. So yes, all of the above, because that in itself is the absolute job of why you're electing a congressperson.
Okay, thank you. Melat, how do you advance your priorities? Which kind of tactic do you take?
Well, the first one is to just talk, have a conversation, right? I always operate under the fundamental belief that no one believes that they're the villain. Everybody thinks they're doing the right thing. And if we share the same end goal, which is delivering healthcare to everybody, making sure our kids are going to really quality schools, and we share the same values, there is absolutely a bridge that we can cross to get there together. If you are not sharing in those same end goals, if you're not sharing in those values, then, especially if you are in our own party, we have to make sure that the people in our party actually represent our values. And that's why I sincerely believe that the only way things change is if members in our party are not taking money from these billionaires and these corporations. And so identifying who those folks are, supporting challengers in their districts to make sure that we can fundamentally change the balance of power is what has to change. I'm really tired of people telling me that it's too bold to call for universal health care or universal child care or tuition-free public college. We can get it done, and we can get it done in the near future if we just have the audacity to and the lack of fear to call out the members of Congress who failed to do that.
Thank you. Dianna, what's the most effective way to advance your priorities?
Well, first of all, members of Congress have to have a strong moral core and a strong mission to take to Congress, fighting for their constituents. Secondly, they need to be able to put together coalitions, sometimes not even with just Democrats, but also sometimes with Republicans, if you can find common ground, like on healthcare reform. That's how I passed 21st Century Cures. But the third is when you're a leader like I am, the senior member of one of the most important committees in the House, you have to set the agenda. I have set the agenda for Medicare for All. I'm not just advocating for it, I've set the agenda. But then I helped bring other newer members on my committee, people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jake Auchincloss from Massachusetts and others. When we take the majority in November, what we're going to do is we're going to work together to put the bill together and to pass it through committee and then pass it through the House. Just advocating something doesn't make it happen, folks.
All right, thank you. Next question, we'll start with Melat. It's another members of Congress question. Members of Congress often represent districts that are overwhelmingly aligned with one political party, like the 1st Congressional District. In that environment, what responsibility does a member have to work with people they fundamentally disagree with?
All the responsibility, right? Because when we are advocating for these policies on the federal level, we're advocating for policies that are going to impact every single American across the country. And so the responsibility in reaching across the aisle and having these conversations is, I believe, of the utmost importance. And I don't I think actually it would surprise a lot of folks to hear that we largely agree on a lot of the issues, right? Medicare for all has support from 67% of Americans. Universal child care has support from 72% of Americans. Getting money out of politics has support from 93% of Americans. The issues that I'm advocating for are not partisan, they're common sense. And we just don't have members of Congress that are fighting for them because they are in bed with the same special interests and corporations and billionaires and now trillionaires that are benefiting and getting so rich off of the system as it exists today. Look, we can talk until we're blue in the face about getting Medicare for all through in this next Congress, but while we still have multiple Democratic members and of course nearly the entire Republican Party taking money from these interests, it's not gonna pass. That's unrealistic.
Dianna, what responsibility do you have to work with people you fundamentally disagree with?
Everybody has a responsibility, as I mentioned to the last answer, to work with people to find common ground where you can push issues that everybody can agree with, like curing cancer. But I have to say something because I'm sensing a theme in Ms. Kiros's responses. She keeps talking about taking corporate PAC money and that's stopping things. I want to say something. Nobody ever gave me a contribution and got anything in advance for that. And if people think that they can buy my vote by making a contribution, they are sorely, sorely mistaken. I voted to have HHS negotiate prescription drug prices. Pharma didn't like that, and I didn't care. And when I'm the chair of the committee, we're going to make that effective for all drugs. They're not going to like it. You have to say if somebody has actually had votes that are in those interests. And I am not bought and I'm not sold. And by the way, the other thing, I support public financing for elections and I'm co-sponsoring the original bill. Thank you.
Thanks. Wanda, what responsibility does a member of Congress have to work with people they fundamentally disagree with?
Once again, that's our job. 435 members of Congress, that it is your job to be able to work with folks. So the other thing that I would like to also bring up is we keep talking about the same things over and over and over and over, and there's so much more to what's happening in this country. When I think about working with people across on the other side of the aisle, one of the things that we've seen, Epstein files. Most of the women in Congress right now are fighting to be able to get those open. When I think about the military and what it's going to take to be able to reel in the military and make sure that we are doing things the right way, so many people who come out of the military and a lot of our veterans tend to be Republican in what they do. I have absolutely no issue in working with different people from different sides of the aisle and bringing the consensus on the things that we can agree on and the things that we can get done. When we have the opportunity to work with Democrats and to work with ourselves to be able to bring part of those progressive values, that makes it so much easier when you've actually got relationships with people on the other side of the aisle, of which I have many. So I'm excited to be able to go to Congress and to be able to do both.
Okay, we'll start this next one with Dianna. Can you describe a time you successfully built a coalition among people who disagreed with each other in order to achieve a common goal?
Yes, I can do it. One of my jobs in Congress, I'm the senior member of the Colorado Congressional delegation. And so, as you can imagine, we have a wide range of views on our congressional delegation, Democrats and Republicans. We work very hard, and I have brought our delegation together to work for many issues that benefit our state of Colorado. For example, wildlife remediation, money, or wildfire remediation, money to go for that wildfire remediation, water rights, and protecting Colorado's water, protecting our ability to have fair and free elections. We have worked in our delegation on a bipartisan basis to do that, and I have led that effort, and I'm very proud of it every day.
One, the same question. Can you describe a time when you successfully built a coalition among people who disagreed with each other to achieve a common goal?
I do it every day in my current situation. I am the CU Regent and we have a 5-4 board. So being able to support the students and get things done for the students requires us to have conversations with folks from Deep Red, El Paso County, Weld County, Douglas County, as well as Boulder. So that is something that I do every day currently. We passed cannabis legislation here in Colorado, not just here in Colorado, but across the nation and across the world, which we had to bring people together from all different types of different interests, from patients to anti-cannabis to researchers and to folks that want to use it casually as adult use. The U.S. military. Dear God, we have brought together more people in my job in the United States military to be able to keep you safe at night, because freedom is not free. So when I think about those people that we had to bring together, and not just people from different sides of the aisle, but from different age groups, men, women, different countries, and folks with different variations of how the world should be governed. The other really big thing that I've taken a look at was working with Tara Bass and the Community Coalition in Los Angeles after the watch riots when we lived in LA. We were able to rebuild LA in a way that made sense.
Melat, same question. Describe a time when you successfully built a coalition among people who disagreed with each other to achieve a common goal.
Over the course of the last 11 months, we've been able to build a grassroots movement of democratic socialists, of liberal Democrats, of unaffiliated independent voters, even of unaffiliated voters who regularly vote in the Republican primary. They surprised me too. Because we are talking about an issue that everybody agrees on would actually address the root cause of the problem. And yes, I'm going to keep talking about money in politics because that is the root of everything. When you have a system where corporations and special interests can get a bill passed with a 70% chance of it getting done successfully versus an everyday American voter who's calling for a bill that has 80% of support from the American people, and they only have a 30% chance of a bill passing, that's not a democracy. We are literally living under an oligarchy right now. And the suggestion that corporations and special interests are donating to members of Congress out of the kindness of their hearts without getting anything in return is ridiculous. And if the Congresswoman wants to make it clear that she is not bought and paid for, then I invite her to stop taking corporate tax money.
Okay, Wanda, we're gonna start with you for the next question. Democrats have spent much of the last decade warning voters about Donald Trump. Yet, despite those warnings, he won re-election. His party controls the federal government. What does the Democratic Party still not get about why so many Americans continue to support him?
So when you don't give people the opportunity to be proud of being a Democrat, and you aren't doing a good job of voicing what it means to be doing, what it means to be a Democrat and to be able to do the things that the people are asking you to do, then it opens up the door for our demons to be able to come in. We not only lost to Donald Trump once, we lost him twice. And quite frankly, it's because of our elected officials, because they have not done what the people have asked them to do. We have not given them reasons, we have not given the people reasons to stand up and to be proud of being a Democrat. And we do have to address the things that matter, Medicare for all. We have to be able to address the affordability issue. We must be able to address the idea that public education is something that we can be proud of. These are the simple things that Americans have been asking us to do, and we have to be able to show them how we do that. And that's why I'm always so amazed when I see people like Jonah Goose stand up and continually be there and having town hall meetings and making us proud to be Democrats. And that is something that I look forward to doing as your Congresswoman.
Melat, same question. What does the Democratic Party still not get about why so many Americans continue to support Donald Trump?
I think it's really important to remember that we lost the last election, not because there were Democrats that ended up moving over to the other side and voting for Trump. It's because Democrats stayed home, right? Because Democrats were not compelled by the message that we were making, the case that we were making to voters for why they should trust our party to deliver the kind of change that they want to see. And frankly, that's because we've made all of our messaging about Trump himself, right? Trump is not the cause. He's a symptom of a broken system. And for us to be able to make the case to voters, we have to be able to show why we haven't been able to get things passed in the first place and commit to changing those conditions so that we can actually get stuff done. Again, people are just struggling, right? They just want to see representation. They just want to see leaders that understand that can diagnose that the system is rigged against working people and are going to fight for them and can do it by showing their FEC reports, which make it abundantly clear that they're only supported by everyday working people.
Diana, same question. What does the Democratic Party still not get about why so many Americans continue to support Donald Trump?
Well, I think the Democratic Party is beginning, have started to understand that Donald Trump got reelected because the citizens of America were worried about affordability. Everything went up during COVID, and people were having a hard time making a living. That's why we need to focus, laser-like focus, not just on eliminating Donald Trump, which is existential to this country because he wants to create an autocracy, but also on providing affordable living wages for Americans, by providing health care for all Americans, with Medicare for all, also by providing child care for all, a bill I'm co-sponsoring with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and also by standing up for the working families of America. That's why I'm proud to be endorsed by the AFL-CIO, the Progressive Caucus, Planned Parenthood, and many, many other organizations that support working families.
Okay, Melat, we're going to start with you for this next question. If Democrats regain control of Congress in the midterms and the White House in 2028, should the party prioritize restoring political norms and institutions or use power as aggressively as possible to advance its agenda?
The question about what we do in 2028 has to be based on the concern that we have for 2032. We had Trump the first administration, and then we had Biden. And while Biden was one of the most effective presidents this country has ever seen, the achievements that he got passed successfully did not materialize in improvements in everyday working people's lives. And if we can't get that done, it does not matter what we achieve in the next Democratic administration. 2032 will come around. Whoever fills Trump's shoes, whatever sycophant that is, they're going to make the same arguments that Trump did. He's going to lay blame on our most vulnerable communities for a system that's rigged, and we will lose again. If we want to MAGA-proof our future, the next Democratic administration, where we will ultimately have a trifecta, we have to pass health care for all. That's Medicare for all, breaking up the big medicine industries, and then canceling all medical debt. And Senator Warren has been fighting for these things. Bernie Sanders has been fighting for these things, and that's the only way to get this done.
Diana.
Thank you.
Okay.
So when the Democrats win the House, the Senate, and the White House, we need to do both. The first thing we need, if we do not protect our democracy, we will lose our democracy. We need to restore voting rights that were taken away from us by the U.S. Supreme Court by passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We need to reform the Supreme Court. We need to reform the Senate and the filibuster that stops us from passing so many important things. And we need public funding of elections. When we do all of that, at the same time, we need to pass the life-changing legislation that we've all been talking about here that will make Americans' lives easier and that will make their costs more affordable. And as I say, the difference between electing me and someone who's never been there, I actually will be the chair of the committee that does all of healthcare policy. I can lead this charge.
Okay, do you need to read the question?
What were the two?
Okay.
Yeah, what were the two options?
If Democrats remain control of Congress in the midterms and the White House in 2028, should the party prioritize restoring political norms and institutions or use power as aggressively as possible to advance its agenda?
So I feel that is a twofold yes to both of those questions. So here's what I will say. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act must get passed. We must protect democracy. We must protect votes in this country. Without a fair and equitable voting system, we do not have America. So look, the other thing that I'm calling for immediately, and I'm the only one that's been talking about this, is we need SCOTUS reform. I do not believe that anybody in America should be in office for 30 years, and that includes SCOTUS. I believe in term limits for Congress, for the House. I believe in term limits for the Senate, and I believe in term limits for SCOTUS. I also believe in expanding the court. We cannot have activist judges from any party that are actually changing what it means to be Americans. We are now re-legislating things that happened and that we have settled in the 20th century. Women's rights, voting rights, LGBTQIA rights, the right to marriage, the right to love. These are the things that are just basic to me when I think about what needs to have happened. And so it is vitally important that we do both, and it is vitally important that we push the agendas and that we change the political norms. We have to do that.
All right, thank you. Diana, this next question starts with you. What are 2 criticisms of the Democratic Party that you think are fair?
I think that the Democratic Party has, in the past, not done a sufficient job of really reaching out to all communities. I see this, for example, I've been fighting for years to pass legislation for environmental remediation of environmental justice communities. Communities like Elyria, Globeville, and Swansea. And I have seen the state of Colorado, for example, the Department of Health, fail to really take action, even though we have a Democratic majority in the House, in the State House, and the governor. I think that they have failed to clean up those areas in a way that they should. The second thing I think that the Democratic Party has failed to do is they have failed to articulate at times the passion that we have for giving democracy to all Americans.
Thank you. Timer's going off. Wanda, what are 2 criticisms of the Democratic Party that you think are fair?
So I feel like that the Democrats have been weak in everything that is important to us and to be able to make it happen. That we have compromised too many times, and too many times I keep hearing about Democrats reaching across the aisle. I think that we reach across the aisle to be able to get things done, but we do not reach across the aisle and we do not bend when things are vitally important to us. Once again, going back to human rights, women's rights, LGBTQIA rights, and racism. We have failed to address racism in this country in a way that I think that is effective. And I think that we become fearful to be able to talk about what it is that we need to do to be able to bring across equality. And if these are things that we believe in and these are our core beliefs, then it is vital for us to continue to be able to fight for it. I also think that Democrats have talked about the things that they want to do and then have failed when it comes to be able to get them done, such as Medicare for all, making sure that prescription drug prices have been lowered, and making sure that Americans can afford to live in this country, and public schools must be financed.
Thank you. Melat, 2 criticisms of the Democratic Party that you think are fair. At least 2.
Anyone want to take a guess at what my first one is? I'm going to hammer the point again. It's the money in politics issue, and again, it's a systemic issue. It's not about the individual person, and it's what leads members of Congress to pass laws like the Cures Act that actually ends up being just a massive giveaway to Big Pharma. Senator Warren and Senator Sanders both protested the bill when it first came forward, and it's a bill that the Congresswoman continues to champion, even though it really just helped all of the big pharmaceutical donors. The second one, which I think is a little bit of inside baseball, I'm just to be fair, that timer's not running for me. Okay, great. The second thing that I is a little bit of inside baseball. When it comes to chairman committee positioning, Republicans actually have term limits. You can only be a chairman of a committee for 6 years. Granted, it counts even if they're not in the majority, which is strange, but they actually have a good cycling of people that are chairmen of these positions, whereas Democrats don't. It's a seniority thing. So then you have people that are staying in office for 30 years waiting to get the gavel.
Okay, thanks. This one we'll start with Wanda. Voters say they're exhausted by politics. Why should they still believe democratic institutions, small d, democratic institutions, as messy as they can be, can solve the challenges facing the country?
So once again, it's about who we're putting in office. And folks, we've been seeing so many ugly things that have been happening, and the one thing that I am proud of is being the grown-up in the room. I'm not yelling about who is more anti-Semitic or who is too old to be in office. Those 2 things to me do not matter when it comes to addressing what is important to people and getting things done here on the ground for folks. And this is what turns people off, this is what makes people not want to vote, and this is what makes people not want to care about what is going on in politics instead of who we are electing to politics. It is vitally important that we send leaders to Washington who are dedicated to getting things done for the constituents who put them there, and who are able to build coalitions and not be in dogfights every time we have to come to the point that we are trying to elect people. We should be uplifting, we should be moving people forward, and we should be talking about the things that matter and not just trying to dig at folks that turns people off, turns voters off, and makes people think that the Democrats can't get done what we were asking them to get done.
Okay, thank you. Melat, why should voters still believe that democratic institutions can solve the country's problems?
Well, first of all, I'll make it clear, this isn't about age. Some of my most enthusiastic supporters are older voters who've been protesting since Vietnam. Just this morning, I got endorsed by my favorite politician, Bernie Sanders. So, to answer the question, they shouldn't. We're embarking on the 250th anniversary of this nation, and the founders made it abundantly clear the trust that you are supposed to have is not in the government, but in your fellow citizen. We, the people. Your responsibility is to extend your belief that we are all deserving of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to your neighbor, and to make sure that the people that we are sending into power are committed to that value as well. And when we know better, we do better. We know for a fact that money in politics is directly responsible for preventing any kind of meaningful legislation from passing and making a meaningful difference in everyday working people's lives. I'm not expecting you to have faith in the government. I'm not even expecting you to have faith in me. You hold the people in office accountable. You hold power accountable. Your faith should be in your fellow citizen and being involved in democracy.
All right, thank you. And Dianna, why should people be confident that democratic institutions can get things done?
Our framers created the most wonderful experiment in history, a democratic country. And unfortunately, people are exhausted because Donald Trump has spent about the last 10 years tearing down all of our democratic institutions. And Wanda's right, it doesn't help when people campaign on false lies and innuendos. Instead, we should all be talking about how we can restore that grand ideal. How can we restore the idea of a legislative body that will pass bills that will actually help the people? How can we work together to pass Medicare for all and all of the things we're talking about? How can we work together for the common good? That's what we need to do. We need hope. And that's what I talk to my constituents about. Let's restore hope in our democracy. Let's tear down Donald Trump and let's restore America. Thank you.
That's a reminder, you're just taking time from your candidate when you applaud. So please, let's let them speak.
Please.
Till the end.
Till the end.
Everyone will have a chance then.
Yeah.
All right, this one's starting with Melat. Do a quick answer around the lightning round is coming up after this question. First, do you think ICE should be reformed or abolished?
Abolished.
Dianna?
Abolished. I voted many times to do that.
Absolutely abolished.
Okay, with that as a starting point, back to Melat. What can a Democratic-controlled Congress do to change how a fully funded ICE operates through the remainder of the Trump administration?
Well, when we take back power, our responsibility is to do two things. First, make it impossible for the administration to continue to destroy our democracy and our institutions, to make it as difficult as possible for ICE to continue terrorizing our neighbors. That means hauling in every single member of this administration for a hearing, serving them with all the document subpoenas, and making sure that not only are they unable to continue their destruction of our democracy, but also holding them accountable. The fact of the matter is we have a second Trump administration because we failed to hold him accountable the first time. And so when we are talking about what we need to do to protect our neighbors, to protect our democracy, and to actually fight for a world where everyday working people can live with dignity, we have to hold the people who failed to do so accountable today. And I want to be clear, ICE only exists in the way that it does today because we have failed for 30 years to meaningfully reform immigration, even when Democrats were in power with the trifecta.
Thank you. Dianna, Congress won't have the power of the purse over DHS and ICE, right?
when we take the majority in
Yeah.
November, Article 1 of the Constitution, the People's House, the US Congress, we have the power of the purse, and we have the power not to fund ICE. And I will do everything in my ability to stop that funding for ICE. P.S. I voted originally against the establishment of the Department of Homeland Security after 9/11 because I was afraid that agencies like ICE would turn into domestic militia against our own citizens. And sadly, I was right. ICE needs to be abolished. And in the meantime, we need to pass bills, which I'm co-sponsoring, no masks and wear their name every time. But I'll tell you what, they're a rogue agency and there's no place in our country for them.
Thank you. Wanda, how can Congress control ICE in the next 2 years while President Trump is still president?
Once again, we will get control of the House, and knock on wood, we'll get control of the Senate, so we will have the power of the purse to be able to change the funding of what's going on with DHS and with ICE. However, the bigger issue is the fact that this administration, the Republicans, want you to get used to having militarized people on the streets in our cities. We saw what happened in Chicago. We saw what happened in Minneapolis. And these are the reasons why we have to have better immigration reform. We've got to have a path to citizenship so that we don't have citizens who are terrified. And not just citizens being terrified, but people are no longer coming to our universities from other countries to study. And this has been a huge issue for us here at the University of Colorado, losing our researchers because people are fearful of coming to America. We must ensure that we stop ICE from coming. And then on top of it, when you are an elected citizen, you have a bully pulpit. We were able to stop what happened to ICE in Minneapolis by bringing the people to the table, bringing the elected officials to the table, and showing the American people what was happening on the ground. And the American people stood up against ICE and removed them from their streets. And that is something that I believe in.
Okay, it's on to the lightning round. And we're just gonna go my left to right through this whole thing. We're not gonna- Yeah, so Diana, you're gonna get hit first with all of these, okay?
I can do it.
Okay. What we're looking for is a yes or no answer or with a few words if it is not a yes or no question. Where'd you go to high school?
South High School, Denver, Colorado.
Wanda?
Mitchell High School, and I graduated from Whitefield in Colorado Springs.
Eagle Crest High School.
Who would you like to see as the 2028 Democratic presidential nominee? Diana?
We have a lot of great people and I haven't endorsed anyone yet.
Wanda?
There are a lot of people that I would love to see doing it. Wes Moore and J.B. Pritzker come to mind.
A lot.
AOC.
Okay. Which two committees would you be asked to be assigned to next year? And I think, Diana, we probably know which one, at least one of yours.
I'll be on Energy and Commerce and I'll be the chair of the Health Subcommittee, but I will also ask to be reassigned to the Natural Resources Committee so that I can work on my Colorado Wilderness Act.
Wanda?
Judicial and Intel.
Emma?
House and Energy and Oversight.
It's Energy and Commerce.
Energy and Commerce.
All right, we'll go again, starting with Diana. Should members of Congress be subject to term limits?
We are subject to term limits. It's called elections every 2 years. And I believe every 2 years I am up for rehiring, and that's why we're here tonight.
All right, Wanda?
Members of Congress, U.S. Senate, and SCOTUS. Term limits.
Okay.
Mike.
Malat?
Yes, 18 years.
18 years, all right. Diana, can you name one House Democrat you look up to? If you had to pick one.
Nancy Pelosi.
Wanda?
Our own Jonah Goose and Ro Khanna.
What?
Summerlee.
There's one more I want to add, but
Please.
he's in heaven now. John Lewis, who was my mentor and friend.
Okay. Thank you. Again, starting with Diana, can you name a Republican that you feel you can work with?
I can work with, I did work with Fred Upton to do the 21st Century Cures Act.
Wanda?
Ooh. as a member of Congress that I could work with a lot of different Republicans on a lot of different issues, but just one that I can work with, no, that party is in complete turmoil right now.
Okay, Melat?
Senator Josh Hawley has co-sponsored 2 pieces of legislation that I actually think we can all agree on, which is breaking up big medicine and capping credit card interest rates at 10%.
Okay, please hold your applause. Should members of Congress be prohibited from trading individual stocks?
100%. I have never traded individual stocks ever since I was elected to office, and I'm a co-sponsor of legislation to not allow it. It's an appearance of impropriety.
Wanda?
100%.
Yes.
Okay. If Democrats take the majority in the House next year, would you vote to impeach President Trump, even if it was clear there was no possibility of the Senate convicting him? Diana?
You know what? Every day, I presided over the first impeachment trial as Speaker Pro Tem. I was an impeachment manager for the second impeachment, and Mitch McConnell stopped that. Donald Trump wouldn't be there now. Every day, Donald Trump does something that's more impeachable than what he did in his first term. So I would not just vote to impeach him, I would volunteer again to be an impeachment manager or to preside. Whatever they need me for, he's corrupt.
Wanda?
Not just Donald Trump, but some of the members of SCOTUS as well.
Yeah.
Yes, Donald Trump and then also members of the administration.
Do you support the potential ballot measure that would temporarily redraw Colorado's congressional districts to give Democrats an advantage in the 2028 and 2030 elections?
Yes, this is war.
Wanda?
Absolutely, and I think that the fact that this is happening right now, we have to be able to make sure that we can fight back what's happening in other Republican states.
Melat?
Yes, my friend Justin Pearson is on the front lines of this fight right now, and we need to be standing with our brothers and sisters in the South.
All right, starting with Diana again. If one of your opponents wins the primary, will you endorse her for the general election?
Absolutely.
Wanda, same question.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Melat, yes, okay. Diana, would you rather be remembered as effective or courageous?
That is not mutually exclusive. I believe that I am effective and courageous to do the things that even to run for Congress, and I will say that about everybody up here, you have to have guts to even run for Congress. So I would say I would like to be remembered as tough, courageous, and gutsy.
All right, Wanda?
I am that regent, so courageous is what I do, and being effective is what I do. So I'm already remembered for that, and I would continue that.
Okay, Melat?
I think you have to be courageous to be effective. We are running a campaign against a 30-year incumbent, and we're out raising her on individual dollars raised with over 5,000 individual volunteers and over 8,800 individual donors. That takes courage, and that's why we're going to be effective.
Okay, we'll start with Wanda. You're all going to get a minute if you'd like to elaborate on the answers, although you all did elaborate while you were giving them. But if you'd like a minute to talk about any of the things we asked about, you don't need to take.
Could you run through your
Yeah.
list real quick?
All the ones.
Just the ladies.
High school, 2028 nominee, which 2 committees, term limits, Republican and Democrat you look up to or can work with, individual stock trading, et cetera.
Okay. I'd love to elaborate on the term limits really quickly. I'm calling for 18 years specifically because we've seen the impact of term limits here in Colorado. And if folks aren't aware, term limits, when they are too short, effectively make our legislators incapable of actually getting anything done. And then it's the lobbyists that are actually the ones who have all the power and all the knowledge and everything. But 18 years gives you the amount of time that you need to learn the ropes to actually be effective with the agenda that you want to set for your district. And that also gives you some time to build the bench and mentor the next generation and make sure that the next generation has representation in the people's house where the decisions being made are going to impact young people for the years to come.
Can I ask, would that be 18 years in the House and then another 18 years in the Senate?
18 years in the
36
House,
years
Senate, and in the
Congress.
Supreme Court. And also, if we do 18 years retroactively, that gives the Democratic president, next Democratic president, 3 Supreme Court seats to replace. That includes Alito, Thomas, and Roberts.
All right. Diana, do you want to elaborate on anything?
Yeah, I'd like to elaborate on that because right now, we are in a crisis in this country. We have an autocrat who's trying to take away our democracy. We have an affordability crisis where people can't afford to buy their food and pay for their childcare. We don't have 18 years for a new person to come in and, quote, learn the ropes. That's why people need to support me because I know the ropes. I'm going to have the gavel to the health subcommittee. I'm going to be the one hauling RFK Jr. and all of his documents in by subpoena and making him account for why children are dying in this country from measles because of his vaccine deniers. That's the kind of leadership we need right now in Denver.
All right, Wanda, would you like to take a minute and talk about any?
I would, and there's two issues I'd like to talk about, but yes, for term limits. And listen, Joe Neguse got elected in 2019. He is now number 4 in the House. It does not require 30 years to learn this job. This is not rocket science. It does not require being in office that long to be able to be effective in what you are doing and to be able to make change. And if Joe Neguse can do it in 4 years or 5 years, I'm sure that any one of us on this stage are absolutely capable of doing that same thing. So I look forward to hitting the ground running because I've already done it. I already have those relationships. I'm already a part of many of the congressional things that are happening. And number 2, gerrymandering. We need to take a look at what's happening throughout the South because if they are able to silence the voices of people of color throughout the South, ladies understand that will be used against us next. It will be used against any type of a population that big power does not want to see have any power. So we must fight against that, and that must be something that Democrats do wholeheartedly and openly.
Okay, back to longer questions and longer answers. Congress and Wanda, we're going to start this one with you. No, I'm sorry. It's Diana. Okay, Diana, we're going to start this one with you. Congress has gradually ceded significant authority to the executive branch under presidents of both parties. What is one power you believe Congress should reclaim, and how would you make that happen?
Congress needs to reclaim, well, I'm going to take the prerogative to say 2 powers. Number 1, we need to reclaim our power under Article 1 of the power of the purse. We need to be the ones setting the budget and the agenda. And if we do that, then we can fund the priorities that we care about, including healthcare, childcare, and so many more things. Number 2, Congress has ceded war powers to the administration. This is why the Republicans in Congress allowed Donald Trump to illegally attack Iran. And I have voted many times over the last couple of months against this illegal war in Iran and for War Powers Acts. I'm pleased to tell you, 2 weeks ago, the Democrats were able to bring some Republicans over. We actually passed a War Powers resolution in the House to stop this illegal war. And P.S., I'm not going to do anything to give 1 cent to fund it either.
Wanda, same question. One power you believe Congress should reclaim, and how would you make that happen?
So for me, being a former military officer, obviously it's the War Powers Act. What we have seen happen in Venezuela and Iran, and now Donald Trump is talking about Cuba, and we went through the debacle with Greenland, of all places. We cannot open theaters across the globe and expect to be effective in all of them. We cannot be known as the Department of War. That is ridiculous to me. We are the Department of Defense. America defends, we do not start wars. It is just beyond anything that I can possibly imagine, the fact that I have worn the uniform for this country. My father was a Vietnam vet, did 2 tours in Vietnam, and my mother was born in Liverpool, England, and she was one of the children that was bombed during the horrific time in World War II, what Hitler did to England. So when I think about being anti-war and not allowing any president, Democrat or Republican, to take America into war without the representatives actually coming to a full vote, that would be something that I would want to make sure happens immediately.
Okay, Melat.
Absolutely, the War Powers Act, and I'm really glad that we're all in agreement on it, but no one has mentioned why we are constantly going into wars in the first place, and that's because war is profitable. We have a military, industrial, now congressional complex, because even Congress members have stocks in these companies that are going up when wars start. And so if we want to end wars, we have to make it unprofitable. And so the real thing that we have to do is start cutting the Pentagon's budget. The Pentagon has failed every single audit it's had since we started auditing agencies. And I'm glad to hear that the Congresswoman is in agreement with this, but the Congresswoman also voted against cutting the Pentagon budget by 10% twice in the middle of a pandemic when we needed that money the most. There's no way for us to address the military-industrial complex without removing the money and the resources that allow these wars to become profitable in the first place.
Thank you. Diana?
That's your answer.
I answer.
Sorry.
I have more ideas if you want.
We'll go on to the next topic, and this one, starting with Wanda. If President Trump proposed a policy that you believe would benefit Denver, would you support it, and why not?
Absolutely. Our job is to ensure that we are doing the best by the people who we represent. I can't imagine what that is that you would propose. But this is the point. The people did elect him president. We are a democracy. And I would hope that Donald Trump would come up with some good ideas at some point to be able to benefit the people that we represent. I would hope that the White House would do something that would be supportive of all people and not just the red states. So, if that would ever happen, now I am not hopeful that that would happen, and I can't imagine what that would possibly be, but my job would be to make sure that you are all taken care of, that we are taken care of, and that Americans are thriving. And that, to me, is the job of Congress.
All right, thank you. Melat.
Absolutely. The job is to support working families in this country, and if there's legislation that the president is willing to fight for that would make a material difference for working families, I'm absolutely going to do everything in my power to make that happen. And in fact, there actually is something. President Trump has called for capping credit card interest rates at 10%. That would make a massive difference for working families in this country. It's something that Senator Josh Hawley is also supporting. I would be really, really, really proud of this failing democracy if that's something that we could get done as a bipartisan measure in the next administration or the next term.
All right, thank you, Diana.
Well, Donald Trump actually this year signed a bill that contained 3 of my pieces of legislation, and I want to talk about them. One of them is a bill that will help us identify the causes of maternal mortality. It is a scourge in this country. Black women are much more likely to die during childbirth from complications, irrespective of their socioeconomic background or of their income or education. I've been working with Congresswoman Robin Kelly from Illinois for many years on this, and we put together a bill to get the information so that we can find out why this is happening. And then I have another bill, which I'm an original co-sponsor, called the Mamas Act, that's actually going to put money into that. Donald Trump signed my bill. I had 2 other bills on diabetes research for type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes that he also signed just this year.
Okay, we're going to turn to foreign policy, and Melat, we're going to start with you on this question. The war in Gaza has become one of the most divisive issues within the Democratic Party. What should the United States' relationship with Israel look like moving forward?
Well, I think first we have to call it what it is, which is a genocide. That is what the United Nations has identified it as. That's what the International Association of Genocide Scholars have identified it as. And in order for us to actually meet the gravity of this moment, we have to understand what's actually happening in Palestine right now, and specifically in Gaza. Our relationship with any country on this planet has to be rooted in our values and has to be rooted in peace building. The reality is Israel right now is operating as an ethnocracy, where the right to self-determination belongs to only one group. And that is wrong, because it will always devolve into systems of oppression, it will always devolve into systems of apartheid, and it will always devolve into genocide. This is not unique to Israel. The same thing applies to any other country like Egypt or like Saudi Arabia that also discriminates on the basis of a characteristic that we cannot control about ourselves. Our responsibility is to make sure that the aid and the tax dollars that we send are actually aiding people, not funding a genocide that has taken out tens of thousands of Palestinians.
The loss of so many innocent lives in Gaza is an abomination and it's horrible. And it must come to an end. That's why we must dramatically increase the humanitarian aid and the rebuilding of Gaza. And that's why we must move towards a two-state solution in the state of Israel and an equal state of Palestine. Now, I got to tell you, the United Nations says we need $70 billion to rebuild Gaza, and we need $4 billion right now for humanitarian aid, for food and medicine for those innocent people in Gaza. Do you know how much money the Trump budget has for those things? Zero. And so I'm part of a group in Congress that is fighting. What I want to do, I want to take away the tax breaks for the rich and the corporations from HR 1, I call it the big bad bill, and give that money towards aid in Gaza.
Thank you. Okay, Wanda? Israel has a not a Netanyahu problem. He's a right-wing warmonger or a right-wing war criminal, just as we have a right-wing war criminal running America right now. I believe in a two-state solution, but the biggest issue that we need to look at is what we're looking at with war powers on the entire planet. When we look at what Russia is doing to Ukraine, when we look at what America is doing to Iran, Venezuela, and has Cuba in its sights, we are now opening the door now for China to take Taiwan. So these are the types of things that we have to be able to look at on a global level, and this is where the American military and American diplomacy and where the Congress absolutely needs to look at how do we protect people from around the world, how do we wage peace in the world, not war, and diplomacy has to be at the very basis of all that we do. But what is happening in Israel right now is a Netanyahu issue, and he must be stopped because we're seeing the continued bombing going on not only in Gaza and the pulling of land in Gaza, as well as what's happening in Lebanon. So all of this needs to be taken under control. We need to be able to fight back, and we need to understand what it means on a global level.
All right, thank you. Diana, this next question, also foreign policy, Wanda mentioned. Should the United States continue supporting Ukraine for as long as necessary, or should Washington push for a negotiated settlement, even if it requires territorial concessions?
We need to stand with Ukraine. And one of the great failures of the Trump administration has been when Donald Trump withdrew from Ukraine. But also, we need to stand with NATO, our allies in Europe, who are right there helping Ukraine. Unfortunately, some people on this podium have sponsored platforms that say we should withdraw from NATO. That is a bad mistake. We need to work with our allies throughout the region to help Ukraine, to help them stand up to Russia, and then ultimately to negotiate a resolution that's fair to everybody and that's fair to the Ukrainians. I have been sick to see Donald Trump's abandonment of our allies in Ukraine, but also the current situation does nothing except for help Russia. That's about the last person we need to be helping right now.
Okay, thank you. Wanda, what do we do with Ukraine?
On the global stage, once again, we need to completely support, I think I just answered this in the last go round, but we need to absolutely support Ukraine. We do need to be a part of NATO because we're seeing what's happening in Iran when we decide to go it alone. Once again, like I said, America cannot open up theaters to be able to protect the world in every aspect because that puts undue pressure on our military, undue pressure on our men and women in arms, undue pressure on families that are serving in our military, and it creates tremendous loss of life. So yes, NATO needs to be supported, Ukraine needs to be supported, Taiwan needs to be supported, Gaza and Palestine need to be supported, and once again, diplomacy has to be at the basis of all that we do. The War Powers Act, pulling that back, being able to make sure that we have peace relations throughout the entire world, working with our NATO brothers and sisters, and making sure that we have our allies and our allegiance in place so that we are not doing this by ourselves on a global level because we do not have the ability to do that effectively.
Exactly a minute. What?
If anyone has seen the ads that an anonymous super PAC has been flooding our airways with, then you'll know that that subliminal comment was directed at me. So let me make myself abundantly clear. I have never and will never call for nor endorse a platform that says we should pull out of NATO. It's ridiculous, it's a lie, and we don't even know who's making those ads because it's an anonymous super PAC. We absolutely have to stand with the Ukrainian people. My policies, when it comes to foreign policy, are rooted in the fundamental belief that life is sacred and our responsibility is to protect it at every single juncture. The reality also is that the Ukrainian people are looking at this war at unfavorable levels that we haven't seen in years. We have to be focusing on the diplomatic measures here. We have to be putting the Ukrainian people at the center of these negotiations, standing with them and their right to self-determination. But without question, we must always stand with them, just like we must always stand with people and their right to dignity.
Okay, last foreign policy question. And Wanda, we're going to start this one with you. The United States has been engaged in military conflict with Iran since March, with a memorandum of understanding that puts a 60-day pause on the conflict that was released this week. What should America's objectives be in Iran, and how would you define success?
We had success underneath the Obama administration. We had effectively stopped them from creating nuclear war. The Straits of Hormuz was open, and Iran was effectively neutralized. At this point right now, we have made them one of the most powerful countries in the Middle East by giving them control of the Straits of Hormuz, and I believe it was $300 billion that we are going to be handing over to them. And they still have the ability to create nuclear weapons. None of this makes any sense. I wish I could understand where this was coming from and who negotiated these types of deals, but this was not a deal that made sense for Western nations, for our allies, and for us, or for the Middle East. So, no, I do not agree with, was that the question? I do not agree with what is going on in Iran, and it needs to be absolutely changed.
Melat.
I agree with Regent Wanda James, and this was a war of choice, and it began during Trump's first administration when he withdrew from the deal that the Obama administration had created in the first place. Again, we have to be talking about what interests are at play here when it comes to going into these wars of choice, and it's about oil, it's about money, and it's about power. And we have to make sure that the people that are making the decisions about our national security do not have vested interests in allowing these wars to start or to continue. And so again, I'm calling for an audit of a sufficient and successful audit of the Pentagon, cutting the budget and cutting the waste, the ridiculous waste that is absolutely without question taking place in the Pentagon. And then when it comes to our relationship with Iran, we have to make sure that we are engaging with diplomacy and actually involving all of the stakeholders that are involved in the situation while making sure that we are safeguarding our national security and the security of our allies.
Dianna.
Donald Trump waged an illegal war in Iran. We all agree with that. Number one, I don't intend to vote for one dime for this $300 billion slush fund for Iran. That's number one. Number two, we're going to have to work with our friends in the international community to get back to the negotiation to stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons. I do want to say one thing about the last answer, though, and clarify. The Democratic Socialists of America have endorsed Ms. Kiros. And in fact, she sought their endorsement. They endorsed her on June 2nd, 2026. The DSA says on their website, they expect their endorsees to adopt their platform. Their national platform calls for an immediate withdrawal from NATO and close all U.S. foreign military bases. I don't know what outside groups are doing anything like that, but seriously, if they're expecting someone to adopt their entire platform, then I would assume that that's what they're going to do.
Melat, would you like 30 seconds since?
Yeah, that would be great. I'll just repeat it. I never have and I never will call for the withdrawal of NATO. And if the point that's being made here is that the people that we associate with, we must assume that we are working in their interests, then I would argue that you are working in the interests of the big pharmaceutical companies, the big energy and oil companies, the defense contractors that have been donating to your campaigns for the last 30 years.
All right, thanks, Wanda. Any thoughts on all this? Okay, Melat, keep the microphone, and we're coming a little closer to home for these last few questions here. Denver has changed dramatically over the last decade. What's one change you've seen that gives you hope, and one that concerns you?
I think the change that gives me hope is how many people have been moving from across the country and choosing Denver. And that's something that's really near and dear to my heart, because in 1998, my parents moved across the world and chose this city. They saw it as a place that they wanted to start their family. They saw it as a place that they wanted to raise me and my little sister. And I've spent my entire childhood here in Denver and in Colorado, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else in the world. The thing that really, really concerns me is the fact that we are the 5th least affordable city in the country. And when it comes to this question of who has been here long enough or who belongs in Denver, the question for me isn't how long ago did you get here? The question is, how long can you stay for? How affordable can we make it for you to be a Denverite and to live with dignity in this city? That's what I'm going to be fighting for when we get to Congress, to fight for the affordability for every working Denverite.
Thank you. And hold your applause. We're almost there. Diana, yeah.
Thank you.
What gives you hope, and what concerns you about that?
So I actually agree with Ms. Kiros. The thing that gives me hope is the incredible revitalization that I've seen in Denver in my whole life living here. The revitalization of lower downtown and of low-high and all of the areas that is wonderful and vibrant and diverse, and a diversity of ages, ethnic backgrounds, and everything. And what concerns me is also the same thing, is if we don't address the affordability crisis, if we don't have real housing legislation and help people to be able to buy houses here, if we don't have childcare for all, if we don't address the student loan crisis in this country, and if we don't address the cost of food, gasoline, and utilities in this country, then Denver will lose what makes us so special, and what I have loved, and why I have made my life here, and why my kids are making one of my kids is making their life here too.
All right, thanks. Wanda, Denver.
Man, I love Denver, y'all. I mean, when I think about Denver, my husband's restaurant was downtown, 8 Rivers. You probably all had been there. We've had your birthday parties there. We own Jezebel's up in the Highlands. He now owns the Small Batch Smokehouse over on the north side. I mean, I love Denver. Our dispensary is also here in Denver. I love the diversity of this place. I love the food of this place. I love the feel of Denver. It's just an exciting, exciting, exciting place to be. And I love that people are coming here. I mean, it's just, I get jazzed about this city every time I'm on a scooter and I'm scootering around and having a great time. One of my biggest concerns is that we are failing in our education prospects. Our K through 12s are failing. Our students are reading at less than 6th grade levels. Our children are not graduating. I think we have a 63% dropout rate right now of what we're looking at. We have got to be able to build a much stronger school system. College should be paid for. I'm always a big proponent of Pell Grant, but the fact that folks can't go to CU right now and afford CU is a concern of mine, and education will always be at the top of my list.
Okay, next one, we're gonna start this one with Diana. Tell us about a place in Denver that means something to you and what that says about the city. Okay, you want me to repeat it?
No, the place that means so much to me is Socorro Square. And the reason Socorro Square means so much to me is because it's the home of the monument to Ralph Carr. Let me tell you about Ralph Carr. Ralph Carr was the governor of Colorado during the Japanese internment camps in World War II. And even though he was a Republican, he knew that it was wrong, that it was inhumane for us to be keeping Japanese Americans in prisons. And he closed down all the internment camps in Colorado. I like to go and look at his statue in Socorro Square and think about the political courage it took that man to make that decision then. He lost his political career because of it, but it's the core that every politician should have when making their decisions what to fight for.
Wanda?
So there's not just one place. We've lived in the north side now since I've come back from Denver, and we've seen the whole north side grow, and we've been a part of that. And I also love 5 Points. But what I love about both of those neighborhoods is how beautifully we integrate not just 5 Points, it is the Harlem of the West, or the north side, which is so strongly Latino and Italian immigrants that live over there, but the way that we integrate it with everybody, and it becomes like this amazing melting pot or a stew of people that I think is worth celebrating and worth making sure that we hold on to the history while reflecting onto the future. So I've watched both of these neighborhoods grow and continue to grow, and I'm just excited. Like I said, I'm excited for Denver. I mean, I'm just excited.
Melat?
The place in the city that holds a really special place in my heart is Oxum Park. For folks who don't know, Denver, one of Denver's sister cities is Oxum, Ethiopia. It's in the northern region of Ethiopia, which is where I immigrated from, and it's considered the cradle of Christianity. If you're interested in history, definitely go take a dive in there. But that park is where I had so many picnics. My community would have so many gatherings and barbecues, and that's where I spent a lot of my childhood with all my cousins and my friends. And it used to be that we would do a lot of those things. We would be in community together. We would go out to the parks. We would have barbecues and we'd have picnics, and we could do it without the stress of wondering whether or not we would be able to make it past the crushing medical debt or credit card debt or student loan debt that we were facing. It's a bittersweet memory because I think young people have been robbed of the same opportunity that some of the generations before us have had. And I'm grateful for their service, but it's time for a new generation of leaders to make sure that we have the same opportunities that they did too.
All right, thank you. Let's see, who's next? You started, right? So, okay. We're closing statements. Lot, please keep the microphone. You each have 1 minute and wrap it up for us.
Well, first of all, thank you so much to the Press Club. Thank you so much for all of you being here on a Friday night, on a federal holiday, the incredible holiday of Juneteenth. You didn't have to be here, but you chose to be here and you chose to engage in a direct act of democracy. So thank you very much for doing that. I'm so proud of what this campaign has been able to build over the course of 11 months. Up until maybe a few weeks ago, nobody thought we had a chance. But we did the work on the ground, talking to our neighbors in bars and coffee shops and restaurants and bookstores and parks, making the case for why we deserve better and why we can have better if only we demand it as the voters who actually do have all of the power. Because the fact of the matter is, if we didn't have the power to change the world as boldly and as imaginatively as we want to, they wouldn't be spending so much money and so much time and so much resources trying to stop us, trying to divide us, spending $1 million within 1 week in attack ads against me. That is what is at stake here. Our power and our ability to bring about the better world that we know we deserve.
All right, thank you. Dianna.
Thank you. A lot has been said tonight. But in the end, the voters will have to decide who shares their core values and who will fight for them. I grew up right here in Denver, the oldest of 5 kids raised by a single mom. When I was a young girl, I decided I wanted to be a lawyer and fight for justice. And my immigrant grandfather was the one who really told me to do it. So I worked hard. I went to NYU Law School on a public interest scholarship. And the day after law school, most of my friends went to Wall Street to make big bucks. I came home to Denver and became a public defender. My whole career has been built on fighting for justice. The next session of Congress is going to be the biggest fight of our lives. We need to save our democracy, and we need to stop Donald Trump. I'm the seasoned fighter we need in this battle. I ask for your support tonight, in the primary, and in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Wanda.
I am honored to be the grown-up in this room. There is no battle with me. I am not trying to fight against different people. I'm just talking about what's important. I'm the only person on this stage right now that has more than one idea and somebody that has numerous ideas of how we need to go about changing America. I have been working on the world stage. I am the first Black woman commissioned for the Naval ROTC unit. I have so many different contacts when it comes to Congress, when it comes to military, when it comes to small business, when it comes to people. I am not a one idea person. When it comes to being able to build coalitions, you're looking at her. When it comes to being able to make things work, you're looking at her. When you're looking at somebody who has fought for you now for the last 20 years, you don't have to imagine what kind of congressperson I will be. You can look at my record because I have been here for us, fighting for this community now for over 20 years. I am proud to be here. I am proud to be your CU Regent, and I've already won this district with over 213,000 votes. I look forward to the voters putting me back into this position and sending me to Congress to be your congressperson. Thank you all for being here tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for our candidates. Let's also give it up for our moderators. Colorado Politics for helping to host this. The press club is open until 10:30, so hang out, grab a drink. We invite all the candidates to hang around and mingle for a bit.